TNKR Media.
Welcome to Inspiring Entrepreneurs Montreal, our 15th season, showcasing stories from outstanding business people, presented by BDO Canada. My name is Dan Delmar, along with Mike Newton of BDO. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Dan. How are you?
Excellent. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Some news and notes on the way, and our guest, of course, Pierre-Etienne Bousquet. He's the president and co-founder of Thirdbridge. These guys were in university together about just over a decade ago, and they decided to build a web and application company. And Pierre-Etienne has a really refreshing, I think, outlook, especially in the age of AI. We'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Most definitely, and he's also he's close to our heart, and they do a podcast with thought leadership elements to it as well. So it's it's not all just fun and games in the tech industry. There's a little bit of thought leadership and just plain old leadership here as he talks to other entrepreneurs on his podcast. So I guess we have a bit of competition, Dan, but hey, we've been around for 15 years, so maybe we get to hold on a little bit longer.
Yeah, we'll throw him some shade. We'll say, you got a long way to go to be inspiring entrepreneurs, but it is great to see that he's doing podcasting, and obviously we're biased at TNKR because it's a lot of what we do is thought leadership, and we love podcasts because it's just a way to spread knowledge and to have conversations. And this is how people learn, right? Through knowledge. And one thing that I did learn today on the show, and Etienne will talk about this, is the correct way to use AI, and that comes up on the program today. If you're a company that does web apps and websites, a lot of clients are going to say, "Well, maybe I can do this myself," right? I think I've had those moments too, based on ChatGPT and all this new tech that's coming. But when I started digging in, trying to make our own app, our own client portal, we're not there yet. It's going to take a while. But as Pierre-Etienne points out, there's some value there because clients who are interested can produce their own rough drafts or at least participate in the process. And that's the real power of AI, Mike, is I think to make people who are not competent at something maybe a little competent, and then people who are excellent at something amazing at something.
Yeah, I think there's two elements here, Dan. One is, this is all we seem to hear and read, and this is this constant AI. I think we're sitting in a world of massive expectation. So I think there's got to be a little bring down to reality for all of us. And I think the conversation here is an interesting one when you look at the fact that whether it's AI or just the creative process that's involved in a lot of businesses. And it's very interesting. There was a Harvard Business Review article recently that talks about basically why companies do innovation theater instead of actual innovation. And there's one quote in here that that made me laugh, that basically says these organizations know they need to change, but often the result was a form of organizational whack-a-mole, which basically turns out to be what we don't know what we're swatting at, we don't know where it's going to pop up, we don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to try and do our best to address it. And in this discussion of coming forward on AI with a draft and how you want to address things, and then going to see somebody is huge. You're actively involved in your own future. You're not dependent on somebody driving forward what your creativity needs to be, but you also recognize that there's an element of professionalism, but there's also an element in here that this is a cooperative initiative.
Indeed, and that's, I think, some valuable insight that we'll get into for entrepreneurs. Is you do actually still need experts to do some of this web work, this design work, but diving in and getting involved is a really great thing to do. Speaking of trends, this is also from Harvard Business Review: 9 trends that will shape work in 2024 and beyond. One thing is creative benefits to address the costs of work. AI obviously is going to be further incorporated into work processes. And another one here that Harvard suggests that I know you'll want to comment on, Mike, is the 4-day work week trend. We talked about this last week.
Dan, I'm getting old. What do you want me to tell you? I don't know. The reality of 4-day work week, all the stats are pushing in that direction. But I guess I can say I need to understand if this is going to be work and going to be more effective and more efficient when it comes to production. If that's the case, then we need to embrace it. It doesn't mean I'll understand 4-day work weeks, but hey, that's not for me to understand, other than how do we use this properly. I mean, the article also talks a little bit about looking at what some of the benefits to address the costs of work. And I think what we're starting to see a lot of is, since the pandemic and since remote, all we've been hit with when people don't want to come to the office is it's a waste of time to travel. It costs me money to travel. I've got to buy lunch. I've got to park my car. So we're going to continue to find, and I think we're in at one point, in search of the Holy Grail. I think today's Holy Grail is the perfect hybrid strategy, and I think eventually we're going to get there. I just don't know how quickly that's going to happen. But we need to find a way that the tangible and the intangible costs of returning to the office, and finding ways to reduce costs to attract people to come back in order to do it. And I hope it's not a major recession that creates such a change that people are forced to. I hope we can find a way to do this in a balanced approach that is a win-win for employers and for employees.
This article from Fast Company is interesting because there's been some skepticism in recent months about ESG, environmental social governance, as well as DEI, which kind of falls under that. So Fast Company predicts what to expect from a sustainability and social impact perspective in 2024. What do you think, Mike? Is this going to be rolled back a little bit as well? Some cuts to be expected in those areas?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who jump on the bandwagon when it comes to these things, and I hate to say it, that use these things in the wrong, which is kind of that marketing angle of things. So as we start to see costs, I mean, we're starting to see a number of organizations laying people off. At some point, I guess everything is on the table. Though I do think what we will see is more of a bigger focus on sustainability at the, let's call it the C-suite or the executive level within the organizations, and it really has to be on the human sustainability element of all of this, and creating values for people as they see their need and tying them into the organization. So this sense of sustainability, I think, probably talks to more people than the environment does, and I think the sense of accomplishment and that vision to an end under sustainability is probably a bit easier than the entire global environmental conversation is.
And lastly, I want to get a really fantastic guest update in on the show before we get to our guest this week. Last season on the program, we had a really great suggestion from our executive producer, Marjorie, to talk to Franz Saint-Elamy, who's a really busy man. He's the chancellor of Université de Montréal. He's the head of an incubator called Group 3737. They focus on Black entrepreneurship. And his main gig is the head of a company called LedarTech, and they do autonomous vehicle monitoring systems for roads. Now, back in December, LedarTech announced a merger with Prospector Capital Corp out of the States, and they are a public company. They're listed on NASDAQ, and so LedarTech then now becomes a public company traded under LDTC on the NASDAQ Stock Exchange. Franz Saint-Elamy saying that, quote, there are very few IPOs, very few SPACs in Canada, special purpose acquisition companies, and in the world, period, he said. And the National Post reports that only a handful of Canadians have gone public in 2023, many of them small mining companies. Globally, IPO proceeds are down by 1/3 from last year, but obviously LedarTech seeing some positive benefits from going public. Very interesting move there.
Yeah, most definitely. I think the SPAC component to all of this is an interesting one. For most people, it basically allows you to circumvent the IPO process, whereas the IPO can be very time consuming, very costly. The SPAC is really already a public entity. It's on a public market. It gives them quick access to funds, and in reality, the SPAC's lifespan is limited if they don't start making investments. So these are the types of things that give people quicker access to funds. Again, it's not the type of thing you wake up one morning and say, "Hey, I'm going to do a deal with a SPAC." You need to have the right counsel and the right advice going in there. But it is an alternative to quick access, and for a company like LeddarTech, I think the trajectory of where they can go is phenomenal in the world that we're living in today. Certainly in the software that they're using in the vehicle side of things, with all the problems we've heard in other organizations. So I will have to assume, like anything else, sometimes quicker to market is the way to go.
And when you're getting involved in a SPAC situation, you are going fast. I mean, you're looking for that hockey stick curve growth, which is kind of what we talk about on this program today. So we are talking with people in tech that go a little slower, that aren't looking for the hockey stick curve growth, that develop very long-term projects with web companies and applications. So that's going to be the topic of the program today, but with ThirdBridge. But we wanted to just get out the shout out there to Franz and Delamy of LeddarTech, who is definitely on a hockey stick trajectory at this point.
I would say we probably got another episode then in the radio show there, bringing Franz back to have this conversation about what it's like to be accountable under a SPAC.
Indeed, that'll be very interesting if he has time for us.
Exactly.
And let's get into our show. First, let's welcome our guest. Pierre-Etienne Bousquet is the president and co-founder of ThirdBridge. They make web platforms, websites, apps, and lots more. Pierre-Etienne, welcome to Inspiring Entrepreneurs.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell me more about ThirdBridge. What makes you special?
So ThirdBridge is a software development studio, and we really specialize in mobile. So at the core, in a nutshell, we build digital products for clients. So in the client's perspective, we are really their partner that can take their ideas and transform them into ready for market apps that can be in the hands of their customers, or can be, in many cases, also in the hands of their employees. So that's ThirdBridge in a nutshell. And there's a big vector as well of ThirdBridge. When you look at it more internally, we are a gang of passionate technophiles, and we're a company that focuses a lot on people. And what we try to do with that approach is really to have products that are appealing for humans. We're building interfaces for humans, not for software. And what we try to do is really create an environment where our humans, our people within the company, are able to create products that have that human touch. And that's what we really believe that makes the difference.
Let's get a little techie here. Obviously, there's management of cloud servers, there's the development of APIs, there's data structures. What does that mean to the average user?
Good question. So for the average user, it doesn't mean a lot. At the end of the day, the average user sees an interface. That user sees buttons. The user will download an app or go to a web platform to do a specific task. And our goal is for them to do that task without any instructions or guides, so that it's as natural as possible. So our core is really, yes, we focus highly on quality and technical stuff, but for the end user and the average consumer, it really transpires into having the best user experience as possible. And that's where we actually focus quite a bit. So not a techie answer, but a real answer where it's all about the experience that a customer will actually have.
You caught me off guard. I figured you would take it and run it into a techie side. So maybe give us a little bit of behind the scenes in terms of what that means, the infrastructure that you're building, what you're trying to create behind the scenes, as well as just what the individual users are seeing.
So at ThirdBridge, we have we're about 55 people. Off of these 55 individuals, I would say probably 40 are software engineers. So there's a lot of technology happening behind the scenes. So it's going to be, a lot of, back-end development, infrastructure, interface building. But at the core, we don't have PhDs within the company. We don't have people that are going to create really, for example, AI. We're not going to create models. We're not going to do machine learning from scratch, but we're going to use a lot of the tools out there. So at the core, we're really engineers. We're using tools to build products, and we're going to use everything at our disposal to create the best product. So yes, APIs, infrastructure, we're heavily involved in Amazon's infrastructure, but we're going to use whatever the customer will take us. And that's probably a big challenge for us, trying to work with many different clients. We're going to work with large institutional clients, and we're going to work with startups. It's not the same approach at all. They don't want to use the same tools. They don't want to use the same tech stack. And so we need to be able to respond to any demand. And that's really challenging for the team.
Are you doing any data migration as well for clients?
Not really, no.
And speaking of AI, a lot of people in the content side, we're not infrastructure people. Not good at the technical aspect, but we're wondering, one day can we make our own apps and platforms with AI? But we're a far cry away from that, right? I mean, I was playing around with it myself, and I was like, nope, still need some pros for that.
Yes, that's a great point. But you know what? We're seeing more and more clients coming to us with prototypes that they were able to build themselves, and that's really interesting to see. It's even more accessible than ever with platforms like OpenAI that are able to provide pretty simple to use APIs. So for people that are actually a bit curious, they're able to do quite a bit. And at the end of the day, yes, we're still relevant. You still need that human touch, and that's why we still have our jobs. But we're not taking it for granted. It's evolving quite fast, and we need to pick up whatever tool that we can use, AI tool, a lot in our processes to become faster, more relevant. So even though, yes, we're not building apps from scratch through drag and drop, but low code is something that's trending really high, so that we're able to actually create digital products even faster than ever.
Mike, that's an important point I want to pick up on, because a lot of people are asking themselves, what can AI do for us in terms of our websites or communications? And I like Pierre-Étienne's idea that some customers who are a bit tech savvy are coming to him with rough drafts, essentially a first draft, which I think is accurate to what I'm seeing on the ground. Like, a lot of people cannot deploy significant, sophisticated websites and apps immediately through AI, but having that ability to do a first draft or get involved in the process a bit closer, that's a really interesting innovation for AI, and it helps bridge that gap between the owners and the marketers.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It also brings me to another question, and it's an interesting. I think AI has been the topic of anything and everything you pick up lately. I've been reading also that this appears to be we may be at the peak of inflated expectations of what AI is going to do for us. We all have this mind-blowing picture of what AI is going to do, but we haven't really figured out exactly how to implement it and how to use it. And there's people that are saying that we've gone to the peak in terms of what that expectation is, and now we're going to have a 2, 3, 4 year period where there's these inflated expectations of what it's going to do for us. And how, Pierre-Etienne, how does that work its way back to when people come to you? I mean, are they coming to you and say AI is going to solve all our problems, fix it for us, and do you have to bring them back down to earth?
It's not so bad. I do understand your point, but it's not so bad. So we're usually trying to tackle one issue at a time. So usually our clients, we don't have a whole lot of clients, and that's something that's important for us. We're looking for high quality, low volume in terms of projects. So we have long-term relationships with our customers. And now what we're trying to do, or what actually they're coming to us with some ideas, but it's really specific. It's going to be, I'm wasting a bunch of time doing this mundane task or repeated task. How can we automate it? How can we optimize it with AI? How can AI can support me doing this task or improve the product specifically? So we're seeing a lot of that. For sure, you have those new leads that come in, and it's hey, I want to use AI for this and that, and it's always funny because we see those trends coming and going. It was like, hey, we want the whether it was at the moment the new Tinder flow where it was like, you swipe, oh, I want to swipe, but to shop for clothes, I want to swipe for this and that. And then you had the big phase recently also for decentralized apps. So, hey, we want something on the blockchain, and then it's blank. Okay, why? What's the purpose? What's going to be the end goal here? What's going to be the appeal of decentralizing your platform? And in many cases, it was not a good use case. Same goes for AI. So we do see a lot of these new left field ideas of just, I want to use AI for this, AI for that. Doesn't apply. But in our day-to-day, usually the ideas, they come really tangible, and we're able to transform them into applicable AI features, and they're really powerful.
But I think, Pierre-Etienne, I think part of that is a function of the client base that you have. I mean, you're like you had mentioned a few minutes ago, you're looking at the bigger projects, the more sophisticated. Obviously, with the more sophisticated mandates comes a more sophisticated understanding of the technology and the use and what's there. Was that a choice from the beginning in your part to look at sophisticated higher level, or did, like everybody else, you start with whatever you get your hands on and then it evolved to that?
Yeah, no, it started with whatever we could put our hands on. So it's been 12 years. So when we started, we were kids, and it could be a website for a restaurant, or it was nightclub apps, and it was a bit of everything. But as we grew, the vision really started to become clearer and clearer, and we actually focused quite a bit on quality. So either big, large clients or startups that need good, powerful products for their businesses. So these are two segments.
Our guest is Pierre-Etienne Bousquet, president and co-founder of Thirdbridge. They're a web and app company. They build these platforms from scratch, and Pierre-Etienne and his partners got together in university. And that was what, Pierre-Etienne, 12, 13 years ago?
Yeah, 12 years ago.
Wow. Congratulations.
Time flies. Yes, thank you.
Indeed. And so you guys are taking a leadership role here. We talked about AI a little bit. I think it's really interesting that you're not against it, and you're not sort of trying to scare people to say that, you shouldn't use AI. But of course, that AI can't do everything for people. The leaders have to actually do a lot of the heavy lifting. And so I want to talk about marketing a little bit here and thought leadership, because we do podcasting, obviously, with this radio show, and we're a huge fan of it as a marketing vehicle, as a way to share your knowledge, to distinguish yourself from your competitors, and to basically start conversations in the industry. So tell me about your adventures in podcasting and what you hope to accomplish there.
Yes, so it's a fairly new adventure for us, podcasting. We had actually the idea really came as a marketing approach, but it really turned into trying to make relevant content, thought leadership content, where Thirdbridge is a company, like I said previously, we don't have a lot of clients, and that's by design. But the downside of that is that not a lot of people know about us. Not a lot of people know that we are this company that can build high-end platform, really complex platforms. And so usually, it could be invites for appel d'offres that we were never invited because nobody knew about us. And so we needed to start making a statement and really being present in the scene of the agencies in Montreal that are building technology. And so the podcast came about, and now we're having a lot of fun with it. And we're having amazing guests, really thought leaders, and not only in technology. Actually, we're trying to leverage our clients that we're seeing, what they're doing on their end. We're going to try to have Couche-Tard. We're going to have financial people in the prop tech that explain a bit how they've come about to invest in technology. What's their vision? And usually it's really interesting because they are the pioneers in their industries of thinking at the forefront of what tool can we build, because what we do, our work is building custom apps. So it's something that has never been done before for a specific client. And that's where, if it's not off the shelf, then someone needs to think about it. Someone needs to see the opportunity. And usually our clients are the people that come up with those ideas and those issues. And they are the visionaries. And we're just giving them a platform where they're able to talk about their perspective and how their industry is changing and how they want to invest in tech. So that's what we're doing with the podcast.
So it's interesting because, I look at, I'm not going to lie, you can't see us on air, but let's say I'm one generation older than Pierre-Etienne. You get into the evolution of the thought leadership. You get into how you see your generation's influence on going forward, the tech, but not just technology, on people, on employment conditions. Do you touch on any of these in the podcast? are you looking at this, or is this really geared toward finance and tech?
No, we approach it all. So we can talk a lot about HR and our reality, and we're going to bring another company in our industry. It might be a competitor, and we're going to address how do we work remotely? What's our approach towards that? What do we do for vacation policies? Do we do unlimited vacation or do we do limited vacation? What are the pros and cons? And so it's really interesting to bring people that are either in our business to talk about what they've seen, what they've tried, and they share it on air. And it's a long format, so we're really able to dig in. And that's what it's been the same for any of our guests, just being able to dig in and look at either the industry, how it works. And we've been talking a lot about our generational issues on turnover, like I said. So it's really quite interesting.
So have you solved the problem yet? Because if you have, I haven't gotten the memo. So I'm still waiting for you to figure out the remote work access and the magic solution that we all seem to be striving for in today's world.
Yeah, we're all for giving the people the choice. So we gave them the option. So we have an office in Montreal, an office in Quebec City, but our policy is you choose. You can work from home, you can work from the office. And we really try to focus on making the situation of the office really appealing. So we're not forcing it on anyone, but we're doing, of course, the 5 set. We're doing the, the client meetings in person here, and we're inviting the teams to join. So we're making it fun. And honestly, the culture has been just growing and growing since we do have those places and we do put the efforts. We have one metric that we're so proud of at Thirdbridge, and it's our turnover rate. It is barely zero. So we are keeping our talent, we're attracting talent, and we're keeping it, and that's probably our biggest strength.
How was your pandemic, and did you have a major pandemic pivot you want to share?
It was interesting. So starting at early pandemic, we were about 10 people. At the end, we were about 50. So we had to hire a lot of people during the pandemic, hiring remotely. We weren't geared for that. We didn't have the management in place to support that big of a team. So we tried to take it piece by piece, but it was actually getting those phone calls from clients saying, we don't want to slow down. We want to accelerate our digital transformation. We want to accelerate our investment into products, digital products. And that's what we did. So it was quite the jump for us at that moment. But even though we were 10, our trajectory was quite slow and steady, and we were able to put the right foundational structure for our business and to support that growth.
You only have a couple of minutes left. What's next? Where do you guys go from here? What's your growth strategy? I mean, obviously, only things you can share on air. We don't want to give away corporate espionage to anyone, but what is it that you guys look to do going forward, and how does that expand?
Yeah, so our focus is really to support better our customers, and now that we have international clients, we're looking into expansion internationally. So having a team either in the States, having a team in Europe. Next week, I'm heading to Poland to look at supporting a client in Europe, and how we're going to do that. It's going to bring a lot of changes for us, but it's going to be quite exciting. So increasing the team, we're aiming our target for 3 years is doubling the business. So that is our aim. That is our goal.
And how do you think that's going to? Is that a team decision? I mean, do you look at these things and go, "Hey, as a team, we're deciding we want to double in the more traditional route," or is this a more of a strategic environment at the upper C-suite level within the organization?
No, it's a mix. For sure, we're looking to have the buy-in of everyone in the team. It's not possible, but there are a lot of people involved in those decisions. I think it's both strategically. In terms of, keeping our talent is the number one. And if we're not growing, then we're dying. So we need to keep scaling. We need to attract those challenges for the team, those, nail biting projects where they're really able to dig in those issues and learn new technologies. And to do that, to bring those projects to the table, we need to scale. We need to be able to work with more significant clients and really go seek those challenges for the team. So growth was sort of a consequence of trying to keep our culture alive, our talent motivated, and that was primarily the argument for us to grow.
I love the statement with, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I think that's a world we live in today. It used to be, we used to feel like status quo we could get away with. Status quo is going backwards, I think, in today's world, and certainly in the technology world and the space you guys are in.
Absolutely. And we see it, right? We have a young team. They are passionate, but whenever it slows down too much, they start getting bored, and we understand that they're looking for challenges, and they're looking to be motivated. So that's what we're trying to reach with that target of growing the business. And as of now, we have their buy-in. Everybody around the table, everybody in the team, they're looking forward to it. They are excited with this vision, and also we're putting in place a path for organic growth. So we're not looking for acquisitions. We're not looking to do mergers. We want to do it ourselves. We want to make sure that the culture is really, really strong and in place, and make sure that, again, management is strong, and that we're not growing too fast.
We'll have Pierre-Étienne's one piece of advice for inspiring entrepreneurs on the way, the president and co-founder of Thirdbridge. But first, let's check in with our BDO specialist. Carlo Lupo is tax partner at BDO Canada. Thanks, Carlo. Welcome back.
Thank you, Dan, for having me again.
And Mike, conveniently, we have a company, Thirdbridge, that makes web applications. So if a company wants to get a government tax credit for e-businesses, they might be able to subsidize the cost of some of these projects.
One of the reasons that we brought Carlo on today is these e-business tax credits certainly have a place in many businesses, and I think, Carlo, this is right up your alley. So I'm not going to steal any thunder and make myself sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. It's all yours.
Thank you, Mike. No, it was a very interesting presentation, and the things that kept coming into my mind were e-business credits and scientific research and development. But I'd like to take more time and focus really on the e-business part. In French, this is CDAE. That's how we typically refer to it internally. In French, it's called le Crédit d'impôt pour le développement d'affaires électroniques. It's a wonderful tax credit, especially for businesses that may not necessarily qualify for R&D. This really targets IT type companies, tech companies, and incentivizes them to develop and sell software services or software licenses. One of the criteria that these companies in IT must abide by is that 75% of their revenues or more must be related to IT, so selling services and selling licenses. The wonderful part about it is that the credit is up to $25,000 per employee. The 75% of the employee's time must be dedicated to the e-business activity. And the credit is split in two components. So I said it's 25, but 20 is refundable, 5,000 is non-refundable. And it works out in a way that mathematically it's a 24% credit that you get right away, and a 6% credit that's sort of dangled as a carrot in front of the business as an incentive to keep it going and doing more e-business development activities. So that 6% that's sort of dangling will get refunded in the future in the year where they continue on doing e-business activities. And sort of the e-business activities that business can carry out were some of the items that were spoken about in the prior segments, which is design and development of e-commerce platforms where monetary exchanges are being transacted on, development of security and identification services, including electronic imaging, AI and interface applications. And that's one of the nice things that's going on right now as we hear all of this AI development that's happening in industry and in society. So a lot of these businesses that are carrying out these activities should consult with a specialist and make a determination whether these salaries and activities could qualify for CDAE or e-business credits. The only thing I really want to mention with regards to R&D is simply take a look very carefully which credits are better, because something may qualify for CDAE but may not necessarily qualify for R&D, and vice versa. So before you make a determination, seek consulting to make a determination of which credit is better, and go for broke, get the better credit out of the two.
I love you tax guys and your acronyms. So your R&D, I'm going to throw in SHRED, which is the discussion of R&D. The only quick question I have for you on this is, the shred process, it requires quite a bit of work and quite a bit of back. Do you need to do the shred in order to claim the e-business credit, or are they two separate processes?
Two separate things. R&D or shred is administered by CRA. You have to complete a whole technical report and analysis to make a determination of whether that activity is eligible or not. In the case of the CDAE or e-business credit, you need to submit an application with Investissement Québec. They'll review the program and activities, and then they'll make a determination and issue you an attestation, a certification that says, yes, you're carrying out eligible activities, and then therefore your employee salaries would be eligible for the credit.
I'm going to keep going with the acronyms: RRSP, RESP, TSFA. Go, Carlo. You got about 45 seconds left.
So just to remind everyone out there listening that RSP season is ahead of us. Because this year is a leap year, the deadline to contribute to your 2023 RSP is not March 1st. It is February 29th. Be very careful. If you contribute on the wrong day, it will go towards next year. So consider that, top up, get your deduction and tax savings. TFSA, wonderful program, contribution limit this year. It increased by another $500. Every year it's being indexed and minimum $500 increase. If I'm not mistaken, it's $7,000 contribution limit this year. So if you've already maxed out your RSP or don't have a benefit from it, put it in your TFSA. It's tax-free as you're generating income in that. And for your kids, think of your kids, the rising costs of tuition, universities, RESPs, Registered Education Savings Plans, are fantastic to put money away for your kids, earn it. Tax-free, get government grants, 10% from federal, 5% from Quebec on $5,000 contribution. All of these things are very wonderful. I strongly encourage you to consider them and speak to a specialist to guide you through the process.
Carlo Lupo, tax partner at BDO Canada. Thanks so much, Carlo.
Always a pleasure, Dan.
As we come to the end of the show, let's ask our entrepreneur, Pierre-Etienne Bousquet, president and co-founder of Thirdbridge, for his one piece of advice for inspiring entrepreneurs. Pierre-Etienne, what do you think?
Yes, it's a really interesting thought, and for sure the first advice that come to mind is around, you have to risk it. No risk, no glory. But the advice that I really want to push is something that we learned and that I heard from Dave Packard from HP is about slow growth. We hear a lot about rapid growth, and sometimes I see a lot of young entrepreneurs that attach rapid growth as the primarily objective for their business, and it's actually something that was not true for us, and it's not true for many businesses. So probably my one piece of advice is that the growth strategy should tie back to the vision of the company. For sure, when we're looking at the big SaaS high-tech companies, it makes sense for them to aim for hyper growth, that famous hockey stick curve of growth. But in many businesses, it doesn't apply, and even though it's not as sexy, it's not the path that a lot of people talk about. Slow growth allows you to put the right management in place. It allows you to have the right culture in place. It allows you to keep the hand on the steering wheel of your company. Rapid growth, on the opposite hand, comes with a lot of sacrifices. You need external funds. You lose a bit of control. It's profit oriented, and it has a lot of downsides. So something to think about is what is your vision and what growth strategy should you put in place?
Mike, that's a great message. And we don't hear a lot of entrepreneurs say slow growth, but especially if you are on the creative side, or if you do things that other people do and you have to wait for people to learn about your talent and what makes you different. For those kinds of companies like Thirdbridge, slow growth makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's very interesting to hear that coming from the tech sector, right? Traditionally, we've always thought of the tech sector as being the hockey stick growth and take it as far as you can. You combine that statement, Pierre-Etienne, with the comment you made earlier about if you're not growing, you're dying. And I got to tell you, you know what? I'd love to see the analysis of how you balance those two statements. That's got to be a bit of a trick some days, because the temptation is to drive it forward and move and keep everybody excited and that higher growth, but also that controlled growth at the end. So power to you, and a great job that you guys have stayed around in a world for 12 years that there's not a lot of other people that have stayed around the tech world for 12 years. So good for you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Pierre-Etienne. And next week on Inspiring Entrepreneurs, Andrew Pimentel from Group Powerstone will talk to us about the quality and customer service behind their landscape design company, in-ground pools, dream backyards, and more. A reminder, you can subscribe to Inspiring Entrepreneurs as a podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, or your favorite platform. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Dan.
This has been a production of TNKR Media. Good talk.